Have you ever seen someone between 75 and 85 years old who still has a special aura? Not necessarily because of perfect health or extraordinary fitness, but because of the way they live, think, and interact with others. Some people reach this age and seem tired of life. Others, however, radiate something hard to explain, a calm, a strength, an inner warmth. And perhaps you are one of these people, because the truth is, maintaining certain habits at 75, 80, or even 85 has become rare today. Many people give up at some point. They stop dreaming, stop getting up, stop being interested, or stop connecting with life. But a few do the exact opposite. They hold on to things that keep their minds young, their hearts alive, and their souls strong. And if they still do these 6 things, then they are truly something special. Maybe they don't even realize it themselves. Maybe they think what they do is completely normal. But often, others immediately recognize that there's something in them that cannot be learned, a kind of quiet wisdom that only comes from a long life. In this video, we talk about 6 things that people between 75 and 85 do when they have remained innerly strong. As you listen, you might recognize yourself in some of these points. Maybe you'll even understand why others value your company so much. The first sign is surprisingly simple. They haven't lost their curiosity. That might sound small, but think about it. How many people stop asking questions as they get older? They say things like, "I'm too old for that," or "I'm no longer interested." But special people remain curious. They still want to know how the world works. Maybe they don't memorize complicated things anymore, but they observe, they listen, they want to understand. Maybe they still read the newspaper and care about what's happening in the world. Maybe they ask their grandchildren about new technologies, even if they don't understand everything. Maybe they try a new recipe or suddenly take up gardening, painting, or music. This is no coincidence. Curiosity keeps the mind alive. Many studies show that people who stay mentally active often remain independent for longer. But even more importantly, curiosity gives life color. It prevents the days from just passing by, one identical hour after another. An 82-year-old man once said that he watches a documentary every evening before bed, not because he has to remember everything, but because he wants to discover something new every day. That's exactly what sets special people apart from those who have given up inside. And do you know what? Curiosity has nothing to do with age. Some people are already old inside at 40. Others discover new sides of life at 85. So if you still ask questions, try new things, or show interest in people and stories, then you carry something valuable within you. The second sign has become even rarer. They treat others with kindness, even though life hasn't always been kind to them. That's an incredible strength. Many people become bitter with age, and honestly, sometimes you can understand why. Life leaves its mark: losses, disappointments, loneliness, health problems, unfulfilled dreams. Some people carry so much pain that they harden. They lose patience, they lose compassion. But some people do something extraordinary. Despite everything, they remain kind. Not naive, not weak, but consciously kind. Maybe they still smile at the cashier. Maybe they sincerely thank people. Maybe they listen to someone even when they're having a hard day themselves. These small gestures often have a stronger effect than they realize. In a world where many have become stressed, impatient, or cold, genuine kindness stands out immediately. Especially in older people, it touches others deeply. Many grandchildren later don't remember big gifts, but the warmth of their grandparents, the quiet conversations, the feeling of being accepted. And perhaps that's their special gift. There are people who enter a room and immediately radiate calm, not because their life was perfect, but because they've learned to stay soft with life, rather than becoming hard. That doesn't mean they're never sad or disappointed. Of course they are sometimes, but they've chosen not to completely close their hearts. That's rare, and that's exactly why people like you are so important for other generations. Because younger people often see someone who, despite all difficulties, has preserved their humanity. That gives hope. An older woman once said, "I've learned that kindness is often the only thing another person receives that day." That sentence stays in the heart. So if you still treat people with kindness, even though life has tested you, then you possess something that cannot be bought. The third sign often shows itself quietly. They still have small reasons to get up in the morning. It doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe they look forward to their morning coffee, maybe to a walk, a call from their child, or their plants on the balcony. Maybe they still love opening the window and feeling the fresh air. These small reasons are more important than many think. Some people don't lose their strength in old age, but their inner drive. The days blur together, everything feels the same, and that's often where the deep tiredness of life begins. But special people keep small rituals, small joys, small goals, and these are exactly the things that give meaning to everyday life. A 79-year-old man once said, "Every morning, I feed the birds in front of my window first. That reminds me that I'm still part of this world." How beautiful is that? You don't have to want to conquer the world at 80, but you should still have something that moves your heart. Maybe they tend their garden. Maybe they enjoy cooking for others. Maybe they look forward to conversations with friends or quiet moments alone with a book. These things keep the soul awake. And what's special about this? Many people underestimate these small joys. They think happiness has to be loud and grand. But in old age, wise people often understand something important. Life mostly consists of small moments. A quiet afternoon, a familiar song, a grandchild's laughter, a sunbeam through the window. People who can still perceive these things have preserved something many have lost. They've retained the ability to still feel life despite everything. And that's exactly what makes the difference between mere existence and truly living. Many people between 75 and 85 eventually say the same thing. Time suddenly passes so quickly, and maybe you know this feeling too. The weeks fly by, the seasons change faster than before, and sometimes you wonder where the time has gone. But that's exactly why the next sign is so special. They still make time for other people. That might sound obvious, but today it's no longer the case. Many people live in constant hurry. Even families often sit next to each other, only looking at screens. Real conversations become rarer. Listening becomes rarer. Patience becomes rarer. But some older people still have this quiet way of sitting with someone and truly being present. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you listen to someone attentively without immediately judging. Maybe you notice when someone isn't doing well, even if they don't say anything. Maybe you call someone just to ask how they're doing. This ability has become extraordinary today. And do you know why it's so valuable? Because many people today feel invisible. Especially younger generations often struggle with stress, loneliness, and inner pressure. And sometimes, a quiet conversation with an older person is exactly what gives them strength. Many grandchildren later remember not big events, but simple moments. Not the gifts, but how their grandparents listened, how they felt understood, how they felt safe. That's something no machine can replace. People who, even in old age, show genuine interest in others carry a rare form of wisdom. They've understood that relationships are more important than perfection, that listening is often stronger than speaking. An older gentleman once said, "Earlier, I always wanted to give answers. Today, I know that people often just need someone who stays and listens." That sentence contains so much life experience. And maybe that's exactly what you've learned, because over the years you realize that no one has a perfect life. Everyone carries something. Worries, memories, fears, losses. And that's exactly why compassion and patience become so precious. So if you still have time for other people, if you can listen and give genuine closeness, then you've truly become rare. Something else stands out immediately about special people between 75 and 85. They can still laugh. Not that artificial, polite laughter, but genuine, warm laughter. That's more important than many think. Because life doesn't only bring beautiful experiences with age. Everyone who lives a long time also experiences pain. Some lose partners, friends, or siblings. Others struggle with health problems or loneliness. And yet, there are people who haven't lost their ability to laugh. That's enormous inner strength. Maybe they laugh at small mishaps, at old memories. Maybe they can still find humor in everyday life, even on difficult days. That's exactly what keeps people young inside. There are older people who radiate an incredible lightness, not because their life was easy, but because they've learned not to make everything too heavy. An 84-year-old woman once said, "When I look for my glasses in the morning and realize they're already on my nose, I just have to laugh." Such moments seem small, but they change the mood of the entire day. Humor is often like a shield for the soul. People who can laugh show something important. Life hasn't completely hardened them. They've preserved a part of their warmth, and others feel that immediately. It's pleasant to be around people who don't constantly complain or only think negatively. Of course, you can talk honestly about problems. No one has to pretend everything is always perfect. But those who still see rays of light despite everything also give hope to others. Maybe you know such people yourself. You leave a conversation with them feeling lighter, calmer, somehow stronger. And maybe you've become such a person without realizing it. Because true joy in life has nothing to do with age. It comes from within. Many people think aging automatically means becoming serious and tired. But that's not true. Some people retain a sparkle in their eyes, a certain warmth, a little humor about the crazy sides of life well into old age. And that makes them unforgettable. The next sign is perhaps the strongest of all. They still make an effort, not to be perfect, not to impress others, but because they still consider themselves important enough. That's become rare today. Some people eventually stop taking care of themselves. They lose all motivation. But special people maintain a certain dignity in everyday life. Maybe they still consciously put on nice clothes in the morning, even if they're not leaving the house. Maybe they comb their hair, take care of their home, or pay attention to how they treat themselves. These small things say a lot about a person's inner state, because making an effort often means, "I haven't given up on myself," and that's powerful. An older man once said, "I shave every morning because I want to show life that I'm still here." What a strong thought. It's not about beauty or perfection. It's about self-respect. Many people lose the feeling of being important as they get older, especially after retirement or heavy losses. But people who continue to maintain small routines and treat themselves with respect often retain more inner strength, and others feel that. There are older people who enter a room and immediately radiate presence, not because of expensive clothes or big words, but because of their posture, their quiet dignity. Maybe they've learned that you mustn't neglect yourself no matter how old you get, and that often inspires other people more than they think, because younger generations observe very closely how older people deal with life, whether they become bitter or remain dignified, whether they give up or keep going. So if you still do small things with love and attention, you carry something special within you, a quiet strength that cannot be faked. And maybe it's exactly this quiet strength that makes people feel comfortable in your presence. The last sign we're talking about today is probably the rarest of all. Despite everything, they've retained the ability to be grateful, not for a perfect life, not because everything was easy, but because they've learned to see something valuable even in small things. That's true wisdom. Many people spend their entire lives only looking at what's missing, what didn't work out, what was lost. And of course, there are things that hurt. Especially people between 75 and 85 often carry heavy memories, farewells, illnesses, disappointments, times when life was anything but fair. And yet, there are people who wake up in the morning and can still say, "There are things I'm grateful for." Maybe they're grateful for a quiet morning, for a cup of coffee, for someone who calls, for the ability to still be independent. Maybe even simply for being allowed to experience another day. That changes everything. Because gratitude doesn't make life perfect, but it makes the heart lighter. An older gentleman once said, "Earlier, I thought happiness meant getting more. Today, I know that happiness often means appreciating what's still there." That sentence stays in the mind for a long time. And maybe you've also realized at some point that the most valuable things in life are often very quiet. Not money, not status, but peace, closeness, healthy days, memories, love. People who understand this radiate something special. They seem calmer, warmer, more content with themselves. And that doesn't mean they're never sad. Of course, there are difficult days, moments of loneliness or worry, but gratitude helps not to be completely swallowed by these feelings. Maybe you've experienced how important this attitude is. Maybe there were times when you thought you'd never survive a difficult phase. And today, you're here, listening to this. And deep inside, you know, life wasn't always easy, but it was still valuable. That's exactly what makes people between 75 and 85 truly extraordinary. Not perfection, not eternal youth, but the ability to remain human despite everything, to stay curious, kind, open. If you still have an interest in life, if you treat other people with warmth, if you can still laugh, enjoy small joys, and haven't given up on yourself, then you truly belong to a rare generation of people. People who have built character, people who have learned that strength is often quiet. And maybe you're hearing these words today for a specific reason. Maybe you needed to be reminded that your worth doesn't disappear with age. In a world that constantly only looks at youth, many forget how valuable experience, calm, and wisdom truly are. But people like you carry something within them that actually grows stronger with the years. A depth that cannot be faked, a calm that only life itself can give. And maybe today you should take a moment to be proud of yourself. Not because of great achievements or perfection, but because you kept going, because you didn't stop being human. If you enjoyed this video, write in the comments which of these points resonates with you the most. Many people read these stories and feel less alone because of them. Never forget, age may take some things from you, but it can also give you something that young people often still seek: clarity, peace, and the realization of what truly matters in life. Take good care of yourself and remember every day, a warm heart never grows old.